Hello, and welcome to today's screening of the University of Laverne's Oral History presentations. My name is Danielle Ridewood, a student in Honors 304-351, Laverne in Higher Education. Today's episode is entitled, From On the Edge to At the Top, a look at the development of the University of Laverne's Honors Program. The Honors Program was initiated by Dr. Andrea Labinger, Associate Professor of Spanish, in 1988. Labinger also chaired the task force which developed the program and then became its director. The goal of the program is to attract and retain students and faculty of outstanding quality, and, through this, to improve the academic quality of the College of Arts and Sciences. The initial idea for the honors program at the University of Laverne emerged from an unexpected place.
I was on a committee. It had to do with admissions, the undergraduate admissions program. And I was a faculty representative on that committee. And our job as part of that committee was to evaluate applications from students who were not admissible, who are marginally admissible, who had either their GPAs from high school or their test scores, SATs, were just a little bit below the threshold. And Pat said, what this school really needs is an honors program because, she said, we spend so much time and energy, and we should, justifiably, helping to make sure that students who needed extra academic support had a fulfilling and enriching experience. But on the other end of the academic spectrum, that is for the more academically successful, gifted, etc., we didn't have anything in place, either to entice them or to retain them.
Andrea was never one to, kind of march into the fray all by herself. She wasn't stupid, but I think it was great.
So what we did was to do some research. This was in the pre-internet era. We're talking about, the first class came in 1988, so this would have been in the years between when I came and 1988. The first thing I think we did was to become a member of NCHC so that I could go to the conferences and learn what other schools were doing and what other schools had done to get a program. And we studied models of honors programs that were similar. Well, the schools were similar to ours in terms of enrollment, maybe liberal arts oriented, whatever it was that made them.
I think it was probably a nightmare to try to keep organized, and just the paperwork on that puppy must have been really tough.
Yeah. The University of Laverne Honors Program has developed a unique curriculum that exposes students to diverse ways of thinking through interdisciplinary learning.
And I think that was an idea, was that the honors courses should be rotated, that they were going to be offered 3 times, and then there would be other courses. So there was a kind of built-in flexibility into the way the honors program worked then. So there was always change, I think, implicit in the program.
Gender, ethnicity, and blah blah in film. And what eventually happened was, when we flew them first with honors students, and then they seemed to go into the general
in the core program, we got to sort of sample different areas, sort of together the intersection of these different disciplines, and have that count for GEs, which was a real exciting thing, a real carrot, So we this was the added classes on top of what we needed to do, but it was real interesting, covered a lot of interesting topics. There was a psychology and marketing course, class about, about the creative process, which was real interesting. It was sort of a mixture of history and philosophy with creativity. And
I think, those team teaching experiences with Sean in the early days, kind of formed my sense of what a really great class is.
Yeah, he's absolutely wonderful to work with. I actually took a class that the two of them taught together. They actually bounced off of each other pretty well in a classroom setting. This course that they team taught was called The Language of Art, which talked about trying to capture visual sources like painting or sculpture through words, and how no two people really see the same thing, and how writing about art is not necessarily the same thing as seeing it. So that exposed me to a lot of poetry, a lot of writing, a lot of art.
And of course, in some ways, it's a very intensive experience, because there are 2 faculty members per class, which in some ways is very indulgent.
Yes.
But in others, it results in such a rich experience for the students, first and foremost, of course, I think. But also for the faculty. I realised the rich generative capacity of interdisciplinary thinking in producing new approaches to a discipline. And I'm hugely in favour of those interdisciplinary collaborations to this day. I wish I could do more of it myself. I miss it.
There to be more of a fixed curriculum, so that the same courses would be offered. And so we did that year Make a Change, and that's where we came up with the Global Ideas sequence, which has been in effect, I think, until since then, pretty much.
Right.
So there was kind of a chronological sequence. So the first course was going to be something having to do with religion and philosophy, going back, of course, to ancient times, and then up to Shakespeare, and then there was, I think that came from Jonathan, the idea to have a January semester in the Galapagos. And so then there was the third sequence, which would be everything since Darwin. So that's how that sequence evolved.
But I think the main innovation that we came up with was to offer a travel component during the January interterm. And that's something that I've been doing in previous years on my own. I would run an art and architecture class for students interested in.
During the summer, they have other obligations. Finding venues that are available for use during the summer is difficult because everybody wants to go in the summer. And because January is a time around much of the world it's cold, we decided to start going to the tropics.
And right in the middle, Honors 102, is the scientific revolution. And so when Jeff was the first, Jeff Burkhart and Jay Jones taught the first class, Pablo and I taught the second class. And it's kind of passed around. Pablo's gone 3 times. I'm going to go again this January, so that'll be twice. But what we wanted to do was introduce students to the origin of how did evolution, the theory of natural selection, come to be. So we have the students read a book called The Reluctant Mr. Darwin. And we take them through not just the theory, though they do learn that, but we also take them behind, like, what is it from a scientist's perspective? What does cutting edge look like? What are some of the issues that scientists face, especially in that time, dealing with his Christian heritage and his knowledge of science and how they, didn't quite fit, and then how they did fit.
Yeah.
And so we take them through that, and then we walk them through the life sciences, including the theory of natural selection, and then we take them to the Galapagos and they get to see it. So it's one of my favorite, I have a lot of favorite classes to teach, but I do love it because the students get to learn about it for 2 weeks in the classroom, 6 to 8 hours a day, and then they go into the field and they just get immersed. And it's not a vacation. We get them up early and take them on hikes and take them swimming, and they get to see all this life themselves and get to see the finches and tortoises and look at different neck patterns, and it's fun.
Now their worlds have been forever transformed by this incredible experience. And then a number of years later, when Jeff and Jay were no longer able to continue the trip, I think they had biology trips of their own that they wanted to take care of. Kat and Pablo Weaver took over on that trip, and I presume it continues to this day. Does it? Still?
It does.
Yes. So we developed the program along those lines, and it grew during the 3 years I was director of the program.
When I was a student, a series called the Honors Colloquium, where students are encouraged to go to events around campus, around the Laverne community, really, to take in the arts, to go to academic lectures. And so that really also made me realize the full value of what this university has to offer.
Take back the Honors 499 class from Barbara Jefferson. I mean, she gave it up, and she had taught a version of it called Searching for the Self, I think, where students were spending a lot of time, as I understand it, focusing on something that they hadn't enough time to focus on during their college careers. And there was also a component looking at the history of Laverne, I think. So I wanted it to be a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more, a little harder for the students, and it sounded easy in talking to a lot of the students. So I made it a group project class where at the beginning of the semester we brainstorm, usually most semesters we brainstorm political issues, and just any issues, social issues, I mean any type of like contemporary problems, locally or in the world, and they'll pick one, and they'll research its implications globally, nationally, locally, and then they'll identify a community organization that tries to address that issue, and they'll work with them, and then they'll do some sort of event or project that tries to either inform an audience in a moving and impactful way about the issue, or tries to actually like support the community organization. So it's a little bit more, I don't know, reciprocal with the world or to the world around them. I mean, the title is "The World is Our Neighborhood," so I think the course kind of bears that out.
Being an honors student at the University of Laverne comes with many additional perks that aren't available to other university students. Honors students have access to the Honors Center. The Honors Center provides free printing, computers, and a quiet place to study or to engage with other honors students. The Honors Center has had 3 homes on campus throughout its existence.
I remember, initially when I came to Laverne, we didn't have a designated honors space, and I remember that a lot of times we had courses or honors meetings in Miller 108, which I still think of that room as, I remember having meetings and classes in there, but now it's the writing director's office, part of it, and part of it's the language lab. It hasn't been a classroom for years, but I still remember, the honors committee meetings in those, in there, because I think this was next to Andrea Labinger's office in Miller Hall. And then later we had the house.
It's a small private house west of here.
Right, but you must have pushed for it and asked for it.
I pushed hard for it.
Yeah.
We almost came to blows between Loretta Romani's group and the honors program. There were three or four groups vying for that little property.
And how did honors ultimately win?
Oh, well, I have to thank one of my wonderful honor students, Mario Guerrero. Do you remember Mario?
I do.
Mario is personality plus, and he also was quite adept at technology, and so we put together this, it wasn't a PowerPoint, but it was something, it was like a PowerPoint presentation. We took photographs of the house in its current state, and then we kind of superimposed images of what we wanted it to look like and how we would use it if we were given the opportunity. And We outlined what our needs were, and we were super prepared.
Wow.
And I let Mario do all the heavy lifting because he was much more adept at using the PowerPoint than I was. And we got it.
Wow.
I don't know if the university owns it anymore or if it's a private residence, but it's been reconverted into a bungalow with a bedroom and a kitchen. And in those days, it was it did have a kitchen, but it was classroom space.
Right.
So it was over there, and it was a nice space, but it was a little bit off the beaten path, and it was, I think, a little bit difficult to manage because you always had to lock it because it really wasn't on campus. And so if there wasn't somebody there, you had to lock the door behind you and always make sure that there was somebody there at all times who could open the door if a student wanted to use it. And it was a little bit inconvenient, I think, for the students to get out there. They did. Then it moved into the basement of Miller Hall, into the area that used to be the cafeteria, I guess. But then, since I, was honors director, it's moved to the library, and I'm sure that's a better space because it's open, all the hours that the well, more or less, I suppose.
I mean, when I came in, this became the new honor space. Before it was a couple, I think it's fair to say, dank offices in the basement or garden level of Miller Hall. And those were dark and kind of gloomy. And since we had this space, I mean, we've got these lovely windows, we got the computer lab and the lounge. I mean, it was easy for me to. I mean, I think actually it wasn't the expectation, but when Jonathan Reed sat me down with Chip and was like, what furniture do you want to order, or what tables do you want to order? I mean, that was just part of my incoming job, was sort of appointing the area to some extent. So I think that was just something that I continue to do. I don't know, I do it with my classes. Like, how can I tweak it and make it better? I mean, you saw in May we were moving furniture around to make the space a little more comfortable out here. I just think what I would like if I were a student. So, I had higher hopes for the social or co-curricular components when it started. I mean, I tried to have Thursday night dinners and Thursday night movies, but it's hard to get students to leave the comfort of their dorms and their cable TV and their not having to do anything or move anywhere to have what they want. So I stopped struggling against that, and the students who want to use the space get to use it. And it's easy for me to get microwave popcorn and coffee.
Yeah.
Additional perks of the Honors Program include early class registration, freshman honors community housing, and peer mentoring during a student's freshman year.
In a way, I think, I don't know if you feel this way, but it was for the students, of course, that was always the primary goal. But a secondary effect was that it became exciting and fun for the faculty as well.
I think so.
It stretched us. Well, I know it did to me in ways that I could never have anticipated. I learned about other disciplines. I learned how they mesh together. And that was fun. An opportunity to engage with other faculty members and get students interested and excited about a topic. And it gives us the freedom to explore something that wouldn't necessarily be part of our curriculum in a more traditional institution.
Retain very, very fond memories of what the honours program can be because of that collaborative ethos of the early days when we first arrived at the University of Laverne, but when we first taught in the honours program.
And that is something that I got really throughout the entirety of my time in the honors program at Laverne, this sort of cultural immersion.
The Honors Program has given me so many great opportunities during my time at Laverne. I've met some of my best friends through the program, taken some amazing courses with inspiring professors, and gotten to spend 2 weeks in Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands, something I would never have gotten the chance to do without the ULV Honors Program. Jillian Hughes, class of 2018, Business Administration major. The honors program has allowed me to explore educational topics outside of my major. I have enjoyed having the opportunity to think critically with students in classes that offer unique topics and curriculum, something I would not have had the opportunity to do if I was not in the honors program. Rachel France, class of 2019, mathematics major.